In a quiet moment on duty, a security guard named Frank was simply doing his work, humming a familiar Taylor Swift tune and gently swaying along as he kept watch. He wasn't aware that someone from the spotlight had noticed him, or that a cascade of emotions was about to unfold. Frank never really enjoyed the concert hustle. Over the years, he had guarded scores of events, from high-energy football games and booming rock gigs to soulful country tours and dazzling fireworks displays. Dazzling fireworks display. Faces and sounds came and went, yet Frank remained his calm, unassuming self, a steady presence everyone appreciated because he never intruded. He came, he worked, and then he went home, a pattern that held until Taylor Swift's show landed in town. At first, the assignment seemed just another noisy night, crowded with pink signs, a sea of shouting teens, and bursts of confetti. Yet when Frank glanced at the schedule, his heart skipped a beat. See, it turned out this wasn't just any night. This was the very same weekend and venue he'd once visited not as a guard, but as a dad. Years before, his daughter Emily had begged him for weeks to see Taylor perform live. At 17, full of energy, she would fill the house with her favourite music, dancing barefoot while tangled earbuds chimed along. When she spoke of Taylor Swift, her voice turned soft and wondrous, as if every note were a secret letter meant just for her. Frank had pulled every string he could to get them decent seats. They weren't up front, but close enough for Emily to lose herself in the magic. He recalled how she had worn a homemade shirt, sprinkled with glittering letters. And he would gently tease her that the sparkles would never wash away. That night, she sang every word passionately, as if the melody had become a part of her very soul. Watching her light up among the throng, arms raised high and eyes brimming with joy, Frank felt for a fleeting moment that he might have truly succeeded as a dad. Then, just 2 months later, an aggressive illness struck without warning, and Emily was gone. Frank remembered the unsettling quiet of the hospital room more vividly than the usual clamour. How the hallways echoed with the sound of distant beeping, and the chill that seemed to settle in every corner after she left. After the funeral, while he packed away her cherished belongings, posters, bracelets, and even the wristband from that fateful concert, he secretly saved one precious memento, a small notebook filled with Emily's favourite lyrics. On its first page, in her playful handwriting, was the line, "You're on your own, kid, you always have been." He never fully grasped why that line held so much meaning for her, but in the wake of her passing, he found himself playing that very song on repeat in his car. It became his quiet ritual, a wordless visit to a memory too fragile to speak aloud. Now, years later, Frank was back at a Taylor Swift show, again in the same stadium. The venue lay calm in the early hours before the tidal wave of fans would spill in, with sound crews weaving through the aisles, technicians fine-tuning the lights, and a few backup dancers practicing near the stage. The air trembled with the promise of something monumental, yet the moment had not yet arrived. Positioned on one of the higher walkways, overlooking the setup below, Frank wasn't thinking about the upcoming performance or the rehearsing crew. His thoughts drifted back to Emily, imagining her dancing amid the glowing crowd. Almost without knowing, he began to softly hum a few lines from You're on Your Own, Kid. Not for anyone else, but as a quiet nod to her memory. Suddenly, a gentle tap on his shoulder startled him. Expecting perhaps a colleague requesting a shift change, Frank turned to find none other than Taylor Swift herself, casually clad in rehearsal gear and holding a water bottle. There were no flashing cameras or a huddled entourage, just her, pausing as if to catch her own breath. In that unexpected instant, the melody floated between them, and she broke the silence with a warm, unassuming remark. "I know that melody." Startled, Frank mumbled an apology, but she only offered a soft smile, a far cry from the dazzling stage grin, more like a quiet beam meant to comfort. With measured calm, she added, "I'm really glad you're here tonight," as if sharing a secret connection. Frank's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and though he said nothing more, he felt her gentle touch on his arm as a silent understanding passed between them. And for the first time in a long while, Frank realised exactly why Emily had cherished that lyric so dearly. Because sometimes, in the midst of our busy lives, we are all walking our own lonely paths. And in those moments, a tender reminder can light our way towards something we once thought was lost. What might happen next in this unfolding story?